Welcome to the 162 Experience. Good morning, Southern California. How you doing today? We are live in studios. We actually have a special guest for you today. 3-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glove Award winner, 2-time Silver Slug Award winner, AL American League RBI leader in 2001. We are jacked up Mr. Bret Boone. He's here. He just came out with his new book called Home Game. It's going to be exciting. Steve, how you doing this morning?
I'm awesome, Benito, and this is a big day. Brett, thanks for joining us in the studio.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it's a big day. You're a gamer, first third generation MLB player, and the only third generation All-Star. Is that right?
I think that's true. I think it's true that all three generations were All-Stars.
That's awesome. So that's pretty cool. And we're going to do just a little housekeeping. We got a couple sponsors we're going to shout out. Okay. If this is your first time listening to the 162, we're Facebook Live. And we've got probably our most famous guest we've ever had, so we're jacked.
Awesome show. We are on Facebook Live right now. If you are listening to this on the 162 Experience at Facebook, you can watch us live. We want to, if you've never heard the show, for all the three people that haven't heard it, we are a podcast which we merge the sports world with the business world. So what we do is we created this thing called the Ultimate Fan Experience. So we take fans across the country. We can take them to any stadium, Major League, NFL, any kind of sport you want to do. And we bring also content and CEOs, entrepreneurs. We interview them for the podcast. So we bring those two worlds together. If you have any ideas, if you have a small business, you have a growing business, we want to put you in touch with our network and our people. We got him in the studio. This is awesome. So that's what our podcast is about, guys.
And we got a couple new sponsors. Our old faithful sponsor that we've had for every episode is Legal Shield. If you've ever been in a legal situation or wanted to get legal counsel, Legal Shield's an answer for not only people that can't afford legal services, but for people that are smart and people that like to do good things with their money. For $20 or less, you can have unlimited access to the legal systems, get your will done, traffic tickets, phone consultation, you name it. Legal Shield is the answer. And just visit your local Legal Shield independent rep to get more information.
And one of our new sponsors we just got teamed up with this week. If you are watching our show consistently, one thing we do is we bring a lot of content about the sports world, and we wanted to say, hey, we're joining with these guys. So we are joined up with Bovada Bodog to bring you the ultimate content in the sports betting world. If you have any questions, any concerns, any kind of game you're watching, we also do live in-game betting, unbelievable platform. So contact us if you have any questions, and we can get you hooked up.
Benito, for those that have a gambling problem, not anymore. Now there's a place to gamble outside of Las Vegas. They can do it right from the privacy of their own home and their laptop computer. So I want to welcome them. And they can go to our Facebook page.
Yeah, you can go to the Facebook page at the 162 Experience. There's a button right there.
You have to set up an account.
Yeah, you can go right there, and right on the front page, right under our logo, it'll say sign up. You just click that button. It'll walk you all through the process. It's awesome.
Awesome. Well, now that we got that out of the way, you can also get the new book came out May 10th, if I'm not mistaken, by Bret Boone called Home Game, Big League Stories from My Life as a Baseball's First Family. And Brett, both Benito and I devoured the book, the audio and the book, in about 24 hours because we only set this interview up a couple days ago. First of all, just thanks for, I know this sounded a little sketchy, invited you over to my house and stuff, so thanks for just being a cool...
Well, that's why I brought some bodyguards.
We do appreciate it, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for being open. Right in the beginning of your book, you talk about lessons that you learned from Ray Boone, your grandfather, and Bob Boone, your dad. Maybe we could just start there. If you had to start with your grandfather, what's the biggest lesson that you learned either on the field or off the field?
Well, he was probably my first influence. I spent early childhood, from age that I can remember. I spent a ton of time with my grandpa. My dad, mom and dad had me at a very young age, 20 years old my mom was. And my dad was at Stanford. He went as a reserve to the Army, got drafted, so he had to go away for a few months. Then he got back into the minor leagues, and I was back with him. But the earliest influence that I remember was my grandpa, and just pulling him out of bed at 5 a.m, putting on the catching gear, and go, let's go play ball. And so I have a lot of fond memories of that. And to the day he died, he was my buddy. I mean, he was pretty special in my life. I had a wonderful relationship with him. Very unique. Gramps was old school, boy. I mean, he was proud. He was proud of his generation and proud of his family. And a good man. I miss him a lot, but I was lucky enough to have him for as long as I did.
As I'm reading the book, it reminded me of my dad a lot. My dad was actually born in 24, and I think your grandpa was born in 23. So same generation. And my dad was one of those guys, it sounds like your grandfather, that wasn't easy with a compliment. Like you talked with his grandmother, like she might be the best cook ever, but he wouldn't say it right in front of her. He'd wait till she'd leave the room.
Never.
Interesting.
Yeah, he would never. I don't remember to this day him giving me a compliment. But you know what? You just know. You know how he feels as. I think I might refer to it in the book, but I would, I'd have a good day. And San Diego I have a ton of family out here. So when we come to play the Padres, it was kind of a nightmare for me because it's like, all right, I need 40 tickets tonight. And I'd come out after the game and go through the hugs and the kisses, all the aunts and, uncles and nephews. And Gramps would always be sitting in the background, just wait, because he was the big guy, and I'd go spend time with him. And, and back in those days, I had fun with it. I said, pretty good game tonight, huh? He goes, yeah, 3 for 4. Hit a homer. And what happened to that fourth at bat? We're like, Gramps, he had 2 homers tonight. We won 7-2. Well, how do you chase that pitch in the 7th? And, that's how he was. But I knew that when I walked away, he would tell anyone in shouting distance, see that kid right there. He's, and I remember as an amateur coming up, when scouts would question my size or anything like that, he would be up. He's fighting in the stands, going, "You don't know that kid's going to make it, and all these kids that you're taking ahead of him aren't." And I knew that, but then as soon as he'd see me, it would. What are you doing? And there was never. It was the same with my grandma. My grandma was an angel. I mean, I remember in the morning, he'd be reading the paper and he'd have his coffee cup out. Wouldn't even give her eye contact. She'd run over, fill it up. Didn't say thank you, nothing. But she'd walk away, and he'd go, "See that lady right there? They don't make them like that. That's the best woman in the world." But if she was in front of him, he would clam up. That's just the way he was. I don't know if it was my dad's kind of similar to that. He's not quite as extreme, but I don't know if it's a generational thing or what. But, I didn't need the face-to-face compliments. I knew how he felt, and that was good enough for me.
Yeah, it seemed like your early level of confidence, even throughout your whole career, was amazing. I mean, you were telling, whether it be locker room attendants, that's going to be my locker one day. Or I remember the story about your school guidance counselor said, "What about a plan B?" And you're like, "Who are you talking to?"
Now I got to be a dad. So, I've got a 17-year-old son, and I'm like, "Son, get the grades going." He's different than me, though. He is a student. I mean, he's a 4.0, and he actually has a backup plan. He wants to go and tour the Ivy League schools, and he wants to go to an Ivy League, which I'm so proud of. I wouldn't suggest going my route. My route was just...
You were just balls to the wall.
I was just blinders on, and are you questioning what I'm going to do? And I had no clue what was about to hit me or how hard it was to play at that level. I just told everybody that I literally thought, even in college, my guidance counselors were crazy. Like, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to play. What? Who do you think you're talking to? I'm going to play in the big leagues for 15 years. But what if it doesn't? What do you mean? It's a foregone conclusion. And I really believe that. And then I remember I got through the minor leagues real quick, and I got to the big leagues, and I remember my first at bat is the same first at bat in the minor leagues. Arthur Rhodes, which is kind of weird. Yeah. Same result, bullet. So I hit a ball up the middle for base hit and RBI, and I stand on first base. I think it was Randy Milligan. And he said to me, "Well, kid, they throw the ball in for your first hit." I said, 2,999 to go. And I remember thinking, I'm going to get way more than that. Even though, years later, it's like, oh, wow, that's a lot of hits. But it was just, I was so naive. And, a month and a half later, I was sitting in my locker. I remember sitting there having a beer with one of the other call-ups going, "Big leagues is really hard." And, I was able to laugh at myself years later when I became established at how naive I was. And then 10 years later, I laughed at myself at that point. Now I laugh at myself, 15 years ago. But I think part of being as naive as I was, I think it helped me. And working with Oakland the last couple years, I look for that in a guy. I was never one to haze the rookie. I'd see a twinkle in a guy's eye or a cockiness or, not a fake in front of everybody, but a genuine, I think I'm great. Well, that kid's going to be humbled, by Greg Maddux, who's pitching tonight. I don't need to cut his suit in half. But I want to see how he responds to that. But the kids that really believe their own stuff, they have a chance. And I like to see, I look for guys like that really believe, they have no idea how tough it is, but they truly have the belief. They don't just talk the talk. What they say is what they mean. I look for those guys.
When you're interacting with these guys, is it first how they're playing or what they're talking, like when you hear them face to face when they're talking, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. It's kind of the it factor, and it's tough to explain. You just feel it when you're talking. There was a kid I had. His name was Daniel Robertson. He's been traded. I think we traded him. I don't know if it was to the Cubs, and he's 20 years old. He's out of high school. At the time I met him, he was 19, and I'd be out with Oakland, and my job was to pretty much do everything except for I didn't talk the physical side of hitting, but I really was into the mental game and the footwork in the field. And Danny was a shortstop, and he'd be taking ground balls, and he could play second too in his sleep. And he came up to me one day and he said, "Boone, do you not like me?" I said, "What are you talking about? I love you." He goes, "Well, you never talk to me." I said, "Because I don't have to. Because you've already got the footwork down. These guys need work. So take it as a compliment that I'm not over hounding you all the time. When I stop talking to you, you're doing it right."
Cool. And you think you're out of the game right now for about a year?
Yeah.
And you were in the instructional leagues with Oakland last couple?
What I did is I was just a specialist. Everybody, we used to laugh at what is my title. I'm a special assistant to the special assistant to Billy Beane to whoever you want. I basically was, I'd raise my hand. Billy would come in and address in spring training every year. I mostly worked with the minor leagues. I did a little bit of big league side, but mostly 90% of my work was in the minor leagues, which I enjoyed. That's what I want to do. But he would come to me and kind of go over my resume and go, and if you didn't know how great Bret Boone was, go over it. It's just Billy's funny. He's got a good sense of humor. But I would introduce myself as a mentor. So
that's funny. Had you ever met Billy Beane before?
That's how I got back in the game. I called my agent and I said, I'm really interested in Oakland because the years that I was in Seattle and we had those great teams, the American League West was dominant then. I mean, we won 93 and 95 games and didn't make the playoffs. And I was always interested in the Oakland side because they were doing it with about 60% of our budget, yet they were there every year. And I was very curious, like, wow, this guy's got something going. Imagine if you gave him the Yankee budget.
So that's where the old sabermetrics comes in. That's where everything. And I remember part of the Moneyball movie. Right. I saw that. And I think a lot of our fans saw that too. When he's talking about how, he's not paying the guys to get on first. He's paying them not to get thrown out at second.
Right. And not that I necessarily agree with everything. I think he revolutionized the game. I think he brought something to the table, whereas I'm very, very old school. But now I've learned, I'm not naive enough to think technology can't help in some capacity. I don't think I'm a little down on the game now because it's all computer. You get a kid out of Harvard that's never been on an athletic field, and he's printing the lineup tonight because this X, Z, and Y equal this. I think that's a bunch of crap.
Is there a manager in the game now that you think does that too much? Like I know Girardi's very heavy on the numbers.
Well, I think they're all kind of going that way. The days of La Russa and Panella and those type, they're kind of weeding them out. I mean, the last one I see standing like that is kind of Bruce Bochy, who's been around forever and kind of that iconic figure.
What about Dusty? He's in your dad's organization. Yeah.
Dusty's one of my favorites. And, I don't know Dusty that well. We've just kind of had an understanding through my career, just playing against him year after year. He'd always give me a look or a smile. I've always liked Dusty for some reason, and without even really knowing him. But I think the ultimate now, with all the technology we have at our fingertips, I mean, I would love to be a player right now. Just having my iPad, and the night before a game, I can go over that entire staff and their last 3 games and every guy in the bullpen. So I'm not scrambling when someone's coming in. I know, all right, this is how he's been pitching lately. This is what he's going to do. What's my history with him? I think it's awesome. But I think you can go overboard on that when it comes to managing. I think it's a combination of knowledge, presence, gut, and then bring in some of the technology, but there's a fine line how you mix that. And I think the great ones are going to find that perfect combination. I think you can't just go all sabermetrics and just say, let the computer run the game. That's not going to work.
Sure.
But I think it can be used in a way, but you've got to find that happy medium and find the percentage to use.
And it seems like there's so many great stories in the book about your interaction with different guys, Lou Piniella. And I know there was one story, of course, I'm a big Yankees fan, where you batted cleanup in the All-Star game, and Torrey put you in the fourth spot. And so there's a lot more to it than just the numbers, because he probably earns your respect/admiration for that. Fair?
Yeah, that was a cool moment for me.
Yeah.
Because it was in 2001. Yeah, it was my second All-Star game, and I got there and I was hitting fourth, and I forget who was hitting in front of me. It was either Manny or some of the Juan Gonzalez was hitting behind me, and I was in the 4-hole. And I thought, this is really cool. I actually got the lineup card.
Nice.
And I went up to Joe. I said, this is pretty cool. He looked at me and goes, kid, you've earned it. And my numbers at the half were, you couldn't really argue it, but I never expected to be hitting fourth in an All-Star game. Even as sure as I was of myself as a 17-year-old kid at El Dorado High School, yes, I thought I was going to be a big leaguer, but to be hitting fourth in the All-Star game, it was an honor. It was a pretty cool thing.
That is pretty cool. Benito and I, again, both read your book in about 24 hours. One of the things that stood out the most is that the Boones have been in the game since 1948. So you're about as old school as they get, and it seems like your dad, Bob Boone, for those that know, he played with 18 seasons, 19 seasons? 19,
yeah.
Unbelievable. Behind the plate.
Yeah.
Which people don't play 19 seasons, let alone behind the plate.
Yeah.
And what are you most proud about your dad?
I'm proud of, people ask me that all the time, and what did you learn from your dad? Really, from the physical side of the game, from the baseball side of the game, I learned absolutely nothing from him. And that's true. That's true. He didn't teach me how to hit. He didn't teach me how to field. He didn't teach me how to run. He didn't teach me how to play the game. What he taught me is just by example, how he conducted himself, how he carried himself. He was very well respected in the game. And I think he was the ultimate pro. He taught me how to act and walk and talk like a big league player. And he was a perfect example for me growing up.
That's awesome.
When you started, you were talking about in the book how when you started batting and you went into the big leagues, you were looking for the fastball, you would sit on it. And you had to get taught. I think it was Edgar Martinez who was giving you pointers on saying, hey, you have to learn how to get the breaking ball. Explain that whole process on what would happen.
It's tough to, it's funny to me. Well, you're not allowed to swing at any breaking balls. They have drills sometimes in minor leagues. I said, we don't swing at breaking balls in the dirt because we think they're breaking balls in the dirt. It's because we think it's a fastball out of the hand. And now you can sit on breaking balls, or some people can. I had the ability to do it once I started that process. And yeah, Edgar pulled me aside. I got through the minor leagues without really being able to drive a breaking ball. I could touch it, but I'm talking about hurt you with a breaking ball. I got through the minor leagues, but I had the uncanny ability to lay off the breaking ball. And in the minor leagues, they could go breaking ball, ball one, breaking ball, ball two. Now I'd get a fastball, and I could hit a fastball with anybody. In the big leagues, they would go breaking ball, ball one, breaking ball, ball two, breaking ball, strike one, breaking ball, strike two, high fastball, swing and a miss. So the big leagues is a little different. They had the ability in a 2-0 count to throw me, get me over breaking ball. And Edgar pulled me aside one day. He said, and I love Edgar's one of my favorite teammates all the time. And he said, kid, you're going to have to learn to hit the breaking pitch. He goes, as soon as you hit the breaking pitch, then you'll get your fastballs that you like. So I did. In 93, I started sitting on pitches and sitting on breaking balls and learned how to hit them.
So for a lot of our audience listening to this, what was that process like? What was it, just in the cage? Was it people throwing you live at BP, or what was the biggest?
It was just a technique that I designed myself, and it was for me. I try not to give it away to the pitcher. And a lot of times, and the catchers are getting better now at reading your body language. And Jason Varitek, for example, was very good. And I'd go up there sitting on a breaking ball, and I'd take a fastball down the middle with the bases loaded. And Jason would look at me and smile like he knows that I don't take fastballs down the middle with the bases loaded if I'm looking for a fastball. So now the game now it becomes a chess match. And that's the great side of baseball that people don't really think about. But you could trick most of the catchers, and I'd sit there and I'd go up in an at bat, and I would sit on a breaking ball the entire at bat. Now, if you threw me 5 fastballs in a row, I'd tip my cap to you. 2 strikes was different. That became a battle. But I'd sit on the breaking ball, and it might be fastball, strike 1, fastball inside, ball 1. So it's 1-1, and I'm not wavering. It's not like I was guessing. I'm not going back and forth. I'm just waiting you out. I'm going, it's coming sooner or later, and sure enough, here it comes. Now, it's nice to be able to finally get it and become predictable, but now don't miss it. And that was the big thing. And times in my life where I was rolling, I would never miss it. And the times that I was in a slump, it's like I'd get the pitch I was looking for, take a great swing, and foul it back. So that's why this game is so hard.
Yeah.
Manny Ramirez is the greatest of all time. The greatest of having a plan and never wavering. That's why you'd see him take a strike 3 down the middle and just start smiling and laughing as he walked back to the dugout. But I would tell our pitchers, or he'd look silly on a slider in the dirt. And I'd tell our pitchers, I said, I'm telling you, be careful late in the game with that pitch that you've been getting him out on the first 2 at bats, because he's waiting for you. He's waiting in the weeds, and he's the best I've ever seen at it.
One of the things I loved about the book is how much inside the game you take us. And it was funny, Benito and I were sort of planning out the interview last night talking about it. And what he loved most about it was the baseball talk about how you changed your stance and how you moved up on the plate. And I love the stories. Like, I think it's so cool to be a Major League Baseball player. But even as much as that is your days growing up, Pete Rose and Ken Griffey, and being around guys like Steve Carlton, Greg the Bull Lazinski. I remember him from when I was a little kid. I think we're the same age. You're a year older than me.
That's my dad's mom and dad's best friends, the Lazinskis.
Nice.
Yeah, grew up with them and their kids. And
that's pretty cool. How cool was that as a kid, though? Like, do you even remember? Do you have memories of that, like running around?
Oh yeah, I remember. So cool. And I think as a kid, I took it for granted. I thought, this is just normal. Everybody has this life. Everybody hangs out with Schmitty and Pete, and I used to sleep over at Pete's house all the time because his son Petey was my age, or I think he was a year younger than me. That was just normal for me, hanging out in the clubhouse. It wasn't a big deal, And my friends would be like, "This is really cool." I mean, what are you talking about? It's not. This is what my dad does. It's just his job. So I didn't really look at it that way.
Sure.
Now looking back as an adult, what a special childhood I had, and how unique and fortunate I was to grow up in that atmosphere. And people ask you all the time, "Do you think it helped you?" I don't know how much it helped me, but I know it didn't hurt me. That's my answer.
And it's not like you had the silver spoon. I mean, you actually worked in the clubhouse for the Angels. When you were a teenager, and you worked in the visitors clubhouse, and you're doing laundry, and you're running, you're getting people drinks.
Yeah, I was. That's when my dad came out to the Angels, and I was probably 15 years old. I'd go down and always hang out in the visitors clubhouse. I'm like, well, why don't you let me work a little bit? I mean, I wasn't actually on the payroll, but I worked like an employee. And I got paid. I'm like, I'm making a few dollars, and I get to go to the games every night. And I was the ball boy down the right field line. I got to talk to the young girls that would come down. So that was my motivation: is I get to go to the games every night. I get to be the ball boy down the right field line, warm up Reggie in right field, and I get a little extra money for going out on the weekends with my buddies.
That's great. There's a story you tell in your book. Maybe you could tell the listeners about Bubba Harkin.
Yes, Bubba.
Maybe
Still there.
I
just saw him a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Cool. And tell us the story. You're in the clubhouse, and you tell him you want to be a major league player. You actually pointed at locker.
Well, Bubba, I don't know if it was construed exactly correct in the book. Look back on it, but Bubba was an actual employee at that time. He was not the head clubhouse guy. He was the bat boy / he's one of the main workers. I was just kind of the extra worker that they let help with the laundry. But some nights the laundry would come. These guys had real jobs. They had to be there, and I'd call in and be like, "Mom says I have to do my homework." So and I had that kind of pass. But Bubba was working, and I used to we used to play tape ball in the middle of the game when there was some downtime and there was nothing to be done, and we'd be having these games, and I'd say, "Bubba, if you're the head clubhouse guy, when I get to the big leagues, I want that locker." And he goes, "You ain't getting to big leagues." I said, "The hell I ain't." And Bubba, I remember the first day I went in there, he had it like, I forget if he had rose petals around it or whatever. He's like, unbelievable. But he's a great guy, and got to spend a lot of years with him.
Cool.
I like the stories when you were talking about you warm up Reggie in the outfield, and he'd give you that look if you threw it over his head or whatever, pissed or whatever.
I was like, screw you. Who the hell are you? I got to get back to my chair.
Yeah.
It was, and it wasn't like I was nervous. I was a 15-year-old kid. And once in a while, I wouldn't hit you in the chest. I'd throw it a little, maybe I was a little excited and get a little more on it. And he'd look at me like, oh, okay, just, and I was like, shut up, Reggie.
Yeah.
I go sit down. I wouldn't worry about it. It didn't bother me. And there's a story later on. I think it was my first week or my first 2 weeks when I got called up. I come out, we're playing Oakland, and I'd hit a home run back-to-back nights. And I was still wet behind I had all the adrenaline. I just want to show people I can play, And Reggie was waiting for me in the tunnel on the way out. And he came up and gave me a big hug. And he had tears in his eyes. He goes, I knew you'd make it. And I thought that was really cool. I mean, from a legendary, Mr. October coming up to a young kid with 2 weeks in the big leagues and giving me a hug, I thought that was pretty special.
And Brett, if it's okay, we're going to play a clip of your audio. And what I love about the audio, because not a lot of times the author doesn't read it; it's just somebody else reading it. But I loved hearing you read it with your passion, and I just felt really connected to it. So it's okay. I'm going to play a quick 2-minute clip.
Okay.
And this is a clip. And I'm not going to give away the surprise, but I'm just going to let you talk right after that because I think this was pretty cool. So, Roberto?
But do you know what really weirded me out? Canadian restaurants serve Coke with no ice. Can I have some ice in my drink? We don't do it like that, they tell you. But I like ice. It's cold already, they say. Canadians hate ice. Or maybe they're just saving it for their hockey rinks. In 1992, I batted .314 with 13 homers and 73 RBIs for the Calgary Cannons. The parent club was running last in the AL West. Fans in Seattle were booing, and Mariners second baseman Harold Reynolds, a two-time All-Star, was slowing down a little. There was talk that the Mariners might call up the Boone kid. And hey, wouldn't that make him the first third-generation player ever? I heard the talk, but tried not to listen. My job was to keep my head down and keep hacking. Our manager at Calgary, Keith Bodie, was a minor league lifer from Brooklyn. Good guy, but gruff. If you needled him when we were losing, he'd get as prickly as his black, disco-era mustache. But this one night, we were winning, so everybody was getting along. I smoked a single to right. I was around at first base when Raul Mondesi, the right fielder, threw behind me to the first baseman. Mondesi loved to show off his arm. I was safe. It wasn't even close. But the next thing you know, Bodie sent another player to replace me. What are you doing here? I asked him. Pinch running, the guy said. Not for me, you're not. I held my ground while Bodie came steaming out of the dugout. You lazy-ass motherfucker, he said. Get off the field. I beg your pardon, I said. Or words to that effect. You want to play for me, you run hard. Fuck you, Keith. I always run hard. It was true. I may not have been the most virtuous guy, but I always hustled, partly because every hit got me a little closer to the majors. Now my manager was showing me up in front of the fans, in front of my teammates. Even worse, he was going to send a report to the parent club after the game. If Bodie said I was dogging it, the Mariners might never call me up. Sit your ass down in the dugout, he yelled. You're out of the game. At that point, my blood pressure was off the scale. My fists were clenched. If I've gotten near the dugout, I probably have started smashing it up. That's when Bodie stepped closer and pointed right at my nose. And he had a big grin on his face. Get out of here, he said. You've got no business on my team. You know why? Because there's a car outside waiting to take you to the airport. You're going to the big leagues.
Yeah, congratulations. What was that like? Can you still get the feeling?
Oh, it was classic. One of the best. It was the 1992 version of Punk'd. And, because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I ran hard. What's he doing? And he was always tough on me because he was going to, I was probably the youngest player on the team, and he was always hard on me. It was a veteran-laden team with, 26, 27, 28-year-old guys, and I was 21, and he was just hard on me, to the point where me and him would have shouting matches, and I realized now I ran into him a year ago. He was still coaching, and I was in town for 4 days seeing one of our minor league affiliates, and I run into him in the lobby, and I'm like, Keith. He looked the same. His hair's a little whiter, but we had run-ins, and he was just trying to teach me lessons. And I remember that day, and I was so pissed. I'm throwing my helmet, fuck you. And he said to me, he goes, "You're going to the big leagues." And I went. It was like I was in complete shock. I didn't know what to say. And I just sat down in the dugout, and I was like, oh, my goodness. That was pretty good. That was a good punk right there.
I can't think of a better story in the history of sports where somebody gets called up and that's amazing.
It was pretty awesome. And I don't know if I know how it works in the minor leagues now. I mean, because I've gotten calls. Mid-game, if there's a trade made or somebody gets hurt in the big leagues and they got to get a guy up there, you got to get him out of the game right now, just so he doesn't get hurt before he goes up. So, if a right fielder goes down in Oakland and they're going to bring up the right fielder in AAA, well, that right fielder's out of the game right now. I mean, it's a timeout and you're out of the game because we got to get you to the big leagues. But he just did it a different way. He found a different way to do it, and he probably got the phone call right then, or I don't remember back then. I don't even think we had cells, so probably somebody came down and gave him a note that there was a phone call that I was going up. And right after my bat, he came out, and that was his way of doing it. But it was a pretty good one.
You had so many interesting relationships over the years. If it's cool to talk about the 1999 World Series, Bobby Cox, one of the most respected managers in the history of the game, and you batted .538, if I'm not mistaken, that series. Unbelievable. So he benches you game 2, pulls you out of game 3 with a tie score. You had this, I don't know the ability, but you had this relationship where you didn't really back down. So maybe you could talk about that, just the World Series in general, what that was like playing in it.
I didn't really back down much during my career. First and foremost, let me say, I have a ton of respect for Bobby Cox.
Sure.
And he's where he should be. He's a Hall of Fame manager. He's one of the icons. We didn't always see eye to eye. And, like you mentioned, game 2, all of a sudden, because El Duque, who was kind of a sidewinder at the time, kind of dominated us. I got one of the hits, by the way, in game 1. And then David Cohn was coming back in day 2, another tough sidewinder. And he just kind of, I don't know, I don't want to call it push the panic button, but kind of made us really left-handed. And I'm thinking, I'm the second baseman here. I played started 156 games, and all of a sudden, game 2, we're going to panic? And I was as mad as I've ever been. And I remember that day he called for me to pinch hit late in the game, 8th or 9th inning off Jeff Nelson, who became a teammate of mine. I hit a double down the left field line, but he came up to the cage, and I remember Pat Corrales was our bench coach. And Walt Weiss and myself were hitting off the machine. We had our big coats on because it was cold. We were just messing around, and I was so mad. And Pat said, "Hey, Mooney, Bobby wants you to pinch hit." And I said, "Go tell Bobby to go fuck himself." And Pat looked at me, and I said, "I'm kidding. Of course I'm going to pinch hit." So I go down on the bench. I get my bats, and I go down on the bench, and Bobby said, "I heard you didn't want to pinch hit." I said, "Bobby, this is bullshit what's going on right now, but I'll tell you this. You're the manager, and if you tell me to pinch hit, I pinch hit, because it's not about me. This is about us winning." And I went up and I pinch hit, and I hit a double, and then next day I got 4 hits, and we ended up getting whooped by the Yankees in that series, but no, we just didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. It doesn't mean I don't like Bobby Cox. I've seen Bobby tons of times since then. I think he's a very great man and a great manager, and I think his record speaks for itself. But yeah, we had our differences. That's all. But it doesn't mean I didn't like him. And if people construe it that way, I apologize, because that's not the way it's meant to be. Just we had our differences.
Yeah, it seems like so many times in the playoffs or World Series, Joe Torre used to do it with the Yankees a lot. All of a sudden, you're going with a guy all year, and now you're playing somebody else, and it's like, what are you panic? You're hitting the panic button. Remember?
Well, it depends how it's done, but sometimes it shows panic to your team. All of a sudden, if I see a guy out there and all of a sudden somebody's there, I'm going, wait a minute. That makes me like, if you're scared and you're scared, am I scared? Am I supposed to be scared too?
Sure.
All those playoff games you were playing, the World Series, everything. Do you remember the most memorable experience you had besides, getting pulled from a game or whatever? What was the most positive outlook on it?
Well, the most memorable for me was the 2001 playoffs when we had that unbelievable season, won 116 games, went through Cleveland, beat them, we had beat the Yankees. I think we swept them twice at their place that season. Went in there, played the worst series of our year, and the Yankees didn't play that well either, but they played a little less worse than we did and beat us. And that was the most. I couldn't believe it. It was like, no, we're supposed to win the whole thing this year. Some of my memories are just the weird things that happened at Yankee Stadium late in the game. I remember, I forget who hit the homer. I think it might have been Bernie hit an opposite field homer. I mean, it was a pop-up. It was late in the game, and I remember going out to second base, and the wind starts whipping, and I'm chasing this hot dog wrapper that had come on the field, and he hit a pop-up to right field. And the thing went like 10 rows deep, and I'm going, what's going on?
Those are the ghosts, baby.
And, not that I was there, but Aaron tells the story when he was in that 2003 season when he hit the home run. He said that Derek came up to him and said, the ghosts will show up. And, I can't say the ghosts were. I haven't played at the new Yankee Stadium, but that old Yankee Stadium, I saw some weird things happen.
Yeah.
And just like, I'd look around like, really? There might be ghosts here. But
there were so many.
That's what makes the Yankees.
Hey, as long as we're on air and before, I know Benito's got some questions over there. Let's talk about that day. You're in the broadcast booth. Is that the first series you had ever done in the booth?
First, yeah. I had no clue.
First one, huh?
We love.
I would show up about like 4 minutes before we go on air. Tim McCarver and Joe Buck have got 10 pieces of they're all highlighted, and I'm like, what do you want me to say? They're like, well, you're going to talk about the matchups today, and I turn to the camera. Well, Pedro's got to elevate the fastball, and I remember Joe Buck going, "You're a broadcaster," which I far from was, but. I didn't want to do it. That was 2003. We had a really good season in Seattle. And like I said, that's when the American League West was just dominant. Won over 90 games, didn't make the playoffs again. And it was one of those years where it was very frustrating because we went from 116 wins to 90-something to 90-something. And all
this before the wild card?
I think the wild card was there, but I think the wild card came out of our division. I think it was Oakland, and Oakland had over 100 wins, and the Angels had like 99 wins. So we have 3 teams with more than 95 wins in the same division, and we can't get to the playoffs. So it's 2 years in a row, and, I was just tired. I was worn out, and I remember Fox was calling me saying, we want you to do the postseason, and I was no, I don't want to do that. And then, they upped the offer. I said, no, I still don't. And they upped the offer again. And then I thought, well, Aaron's going to be in it. So give me an excuse to go out. I'll get to watch him. Why not? So I ended up doing it. As a current player at the time, it was very hard. It was very hard because to be critical and be honest, because you've got to play against those guys in 3 months. And I remember they'd put me on the spot, and it was there was a brawl.
Oh, yeah, the Don Zimmer brawl, yeah.
And
was that the game where Zimmer and Pedro?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was that series.
And by the way, I had no problem with Pedro throwing Don to the side. They're like, oh, you can't throw an old man. Let me tell you, when you've got everybody in the field coming at you, you're not deciphering people's ages. You're just trying to not get killed. So it's not that Pedro knew that was Don. He just knew everybody's coming at him. So, it gets back to the broadcast, and, now it's all come down. Pedro's out of the game, whatever. And I know he's sitting there watching the broadcast, and they're going, did Pedro hit him on purpose? And I'm like, of course he hit him on purpose. Of course he did. And, the next day I'd walk through the locker room, Pedro would, Boone, I didn't mean to slip. I'm like, shut up. And he gave me a smile, which was good, but it puts you in a tough position. I remember Alfonso Soriano, he's playing second base and routine ground ball, and he kicks it. He got a little lazy with his feet. He should have been an outfielder. But at the time, and Alfonso ended up having a wonderful career. And they said, well, what happened on that, Bret? Put me on the spot, And I'm like, well, and it happens to the best of us. It's happened to me. It's happened to me. When the real answer is he stinks at second, he should be in left. But I can't say that to him. I got to go see Alfonso now, and I know what it's like as a current player. Between innings, I would go up and I would watch the monitor because I'm watching tendencies and patterns, but I can always hear the audio. And you want to come through the TV sometimes. Oh, yeah, you forgot how tough it is. You're up in the booth, just throwing words out. So I didn't want to be that guy, especially as a current player. I think as an ex-player, you can be a little more critical, but I still think it's a finely tuned skill to be able to walk that high wire, and get the respect of the audience, yet keep the respect of the players. I think it's a skill. I think my brother does it very well. I think the ultimate, I don't know how he gets away with it, but I think he's very unique and one in a million is Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
Charles just says whatever he wants, and everybody just laughs and smiles, even the guy he's critiquing. But he's got that gift that not too many people have. So that he let's throw him out. He doesn't count. But I think that the high wire act is it's a skill that you develop over time.
And are you having dinner with Aaron like every night during the series, like it's 7-game series, New York, Boston?
No, I left him alone. He had his wife in town. I left him alone for the most part. The night before, I had that big talk with him. When I show. That's not me.
It's not me. That's okay.
Yeah, the night before he hit the home run, I go to his hotel room, and he's sitting there, kind of mundane. What's the word?
Depressed?
Yeah, just kind of that look on his face like I suck, and like, yeah, you do. You're horrible right now. And I kind of broke the ice that way, like, you stink. I said, he's like, well, you haven't gone through this before. I said, the hell I haven't. I said, check my bubblegum card, man. I've been through this. This is tough. And he was just having a really tough series, and I just wanted to was there to give him a pep talk. And I told him, I said, you know what? You're having a terrible series. I said, but tomorrow, who knows? I said, you might turn a big double play that ends the game. You might hit a sac fly in the 8th that puts you ahead by 1. And everybody's going to forget the bad series you have when you go to the World Series. I said, so let's concentrate on tomorrow. And I kind of gave him that talk, and boom, and I left. And next day, he comes to the ballpark. He's not in the lineup. And I'm like, oh, man, he's going to be even more down, especially if they lose. And then late in the game, I remember him coming on deck, and I'm just looking down there, and I'm thinking, well, because normally we don't want to face a knuckleballer. Yeah. It's like a wiffle ball game in the backyard with one of those crazy wiffle balls. But I'm going, he's got no chance against a traditional pitcher right now. Maybe he needs a knuckleballer. But what happened next, I didn't think, I had no words. And obviously, from the footage, you can see that I was just so proud of him and so excited for him because of the series he was having. Hitting one of the biggest home runs in the history of the game. And I remember I just had goosebumps, and you have that thing in your ear, and the director's going, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I didn't have any words. And he goes, no, that's perfect. That's perfect. Don't say anything. Sometimes nothing is more, And but that was just my genuine response to that. I had nothing. And I don't get excited about things. When my son, I'm going to my son's playoff game today. If he gets a big hit to win the game walk-off, I'm not that guy that jumps up and down in the stands, but I've just got, that's really cool. So I've never been an emotional guy that pumps my fist and does anything like that. But inside, yeah, fireworks were going off for me for Aaron. So that was a pretty cool moment.
Yeah, make sure if you're reading the book, catch that story. That's a great story in the book.
Speaking about your book, I want to talk about a couple things in there, ask you a couple questions. I know a lot of sports fans, baseball fans love that you played with some of the biggest names in the game. I think that's awesome. One of the guys that wrote a book, I think he came out with it in 2005, Juiced, Jose Canseco, was a big topic in the majors. And you adamantly deny it in the book. And what are, we talk about some sports fans around the game. I know I would love to see, 500-foot home runs, they're just like these guys that are just almost like a circus act out there. You see guys hitting 70 home runs plus. That's an amazing thing. But what are your views, like coming from a current or an ex-player? What are your views? How did you see that whole era?
Well, I think the era, obviously, and I think what they've done to clean up the sport, I think is very good. I think it's very good. Going back to the Canseco book, I think a lot of what he said in the book proved to be accurate. But I think what he did is he ran out of footage and stories and started making assumptions. I don't know Jose. I've never met him. Other than the longest conversation I've had with Jose is when he got to second base is, "What's up, Jose? Hey, Booney." That is it. And for him to make that accusation, I mean, I was accused all the time. You know, when I started getting into fitness, I was crazy. And that's all off season, I would kill myself on diet. And I was always lumped into that group, which was fine. We were all accused at the time. You know, if you looked a certain way, if you trained hard, you know, there were guys that, you know, I'm sure were taking it that didn't do any training. You couldn't tell they were doing anything. But the thing that really helped me without me having to stand up on top of the mountain and defend myself was the Matt Lauer interview. And Matt Lauer did some research, and Jose claimed that it was in 2001. He was with the Angels at the time. He had hit a double, got to second base, and had this fictional conversation with me. First of all, I didn't know the guy, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's what I would do. Hey, Jose, let me tell you a secret.
Yes.
To a stranger. So Matt Lauer has him in the interview room, and they're talking all about. Mine was just a little tiny footnote. And says, "Well, you say here in 2001 you had this conversation with Bret Boone." Yeah. He goes, "Well, I did the research, and you never reached second base against the Mariners in 2001 in spring training." And Jose just started fumbling. Well, maybe it was we were running off the field. Oh yeah, that's another place I'd stop and let's talk about this. So that kind of got me vindicated without having to, or not. What's the word I'm looking for?
Almost released from
I think
released without me having to stand up. And at the time it's like it was so every day, that's all everybody was talking about, and it's like, can we talk about something else? I mean, we're still talking about it now.
Yeah. So 96, 97, 2 worst years for you?
By far.
Yeah.
And that was the tough times. Yeah.
And so you did make some changes. You and your dad spent probably more time around the game than you had ever had. You talked about in the book, where you went back to the batting cage.
Right. As much as I said earlier that Dad never taught me one thing about baseball as a kid growing up, he never did. As a professional, we worked together great. I mean, I'd fly him in when I was struggling, and he just knew my swing, and he could help me get out of a slump, as good as anybody could. So, yeah, we had to, after 97, we just revamped everything. And I went from a completely closed stance to open stance. And that's something you can't just do mid-season. So I started hitting, normally I'd start hitting the beginning of January. All of a sudden I'm hitting first day of October. And I had to just get that repetition. So when I got to spring training, I would have some reps. And yeah, and I went from wide open or closed to open. And I had a pretty good year that year. And, I ended up driving in 95 runs. And first year I hit 20 home runs. And so, yeah, that was a turnaround year for me. And then I revamped after 2000 again. Just a little tweak. And that's when Edgar came into my life big time as far as mentoring me on how to think through the process of hitting. And he helped me a ton.
That's cool. And then nutritionally, you started eating totally different. Was that hard on the road?
It was hard on the road, but I did it mainly in the off season. I mean, once October hit, October until spring training, it's like I would do a flawless diet. I hired this trainer out of Florida that was Tim Raines' trainer. Then Timmy was just about to retire, and it was suggested to me to use him, and he was one of those maniacs, but he was on me, and he just taught me nutrition, how to eat, how to do this, and how to get the most out of everything. And I became one of those crazy fitness, those people that annoy you. I was that guy, like, hey, what are you eating over there? And I'm like, just leave me alone. And
it still seems like are you still like that?
Oh, I've toned it down a lot. I know right now I just don't want to be short and fat. I'm already short. So, and I don't overdo it anymore. I get into the gym about 4 days a week. I still watch what I eat, but I'm not crazy. I mean, I have 4 kids. So if we go out to dinner and we're going to have a pizza, I'll have a pizza with them. It's not a big deal, but my diet's pretty clean. And like I said, I used to go to the gym 7-8 sessions a week. Now, for an hour 15. Now I'll go 4 times a week for 30 to 40 minutes.
So when you're going from like October to spring training and you're hitting the gym really hard, diligently, so what are you seeing? What kind of results are you seeing? Are you seeing, faster bat speed through the zone? Are you seeing what are the...
I'm seeing as much as a mental edge as a physical edge. Just because you're big and strong doesn't mean you're going to hit home runs. I've seen big, strong people can't hit a ball out of their shadow. That's technique. That's fast twitch muscle fiber. That's swing. Because there's a lot of guys that were strong. I remember, and this another one of my favorite teammates of all time, Walt Weiss. If you saw him with his shirt off, he's an ultimate fighter. Really? He's been training in that arena for 15, 20 years. And I had no idea. And Walt when I played with him in Atlanta, he was about 5 years into it, and took his shirt off, and I said, "Jeez, I didn't know you were that ripped." He goes, "Yeah," he goes, "Booney, I'm one of the strongest guys in the game, and I can't hit a ball out of my shadow." And it just proves that it's technique. It has nothing to do with it. I mean, I've seen soft body guys hit balls 500 feet. It's technique. But I think what training does, not only does it strengthen your body for a 6-month season. So in September, you're not limping down the stretch. For a middle infielder, I'm diving. I'm hard on my shoulders, and the stronger my shoulders are, the easier they're going to hold up. And the better shape you're in, the better you take care of yourself in September, you're going to be a little stronger than the next guy. And that was my process, plus the mental side. I think if you think you're great, you are great. I truly believe that. Still, the biggest tool in this game, in anything in life, is brain. It's not physical. If you believe, it's true, whether it is or it isn't. But it's how do you trick your brain into thinking you're better than you are. And there's guys that are just, let's be honest, they're just born flat out at a different level than the rest of us mortals. The Ken Griffeys of the world, the LeBron James, the Jordans, Barry Bonds, they're just different. They're just better than the rest of us. So how do we, Alex Rodriguez, how do we get to their level? We've got to out-train them and trick our brain.
Like on a level, at your level, the big league level, say you're in a slump, whatever the case may be, however long, what did you do for habits or ritual to get out of that, Well, I think it comes with experience. A current guy that I'll use as an example is Josh Donaldson, who's one of my favorite guys. And in Oakland, we've developed a relationship, and we talk time to time, and he's got this big leg kick. And I was working, not working with him, but I was talking to him on the phone. And I said, "Josh, you've got, man, when that leg kick's on, you are powerful." And he would always say, "Well, I'm not as good as you were." I said, "Let me tell you, I've seen a lot of players. You've got every bit my ability. It's just got to all click for you." And what happened last year? He won the MVP. I said, and I sent him a text. I said, "Congratulations." And I told you you're as good as I was. And, but the year prior, he had a good power year, but he hit 250 because he went like 0 for 40 because of the leg kick. And he said, "What do you think?" I said, "What you need to find is when that leg kick's working, it's lethal." I said, "But be able to recognize when it's not working and the timing's off, because it's tough with that big of a leg kick. Yeah. 162 games in the big leagues to keep that thing on time." So I said, "You need to recognize when you're 0 for 6 that the leg kick's off, and let's cut the leg kick and go half the leg kick just to survive." So instead of going 0 for 40, we go 0 for 7. Think if you would have mixed in 6 more hits than that 0 for 40. Instead of hitting 250, you hit 275. So that was the difference, and I don't know if that helped him. I'm not taking any credit for what Josh did. I mean, he did it himself, but he's a student of the game big time, and he just wants to learn and wants every edge he can possibly get, and he's studying everything. So that's things you just learn over time, is recognizing. I'd recognize when I wasn't right, when my regular stance wasn't working or my timing was a bit off, and I'd have kind of an emergency trick that I would do that I really can't even explain to people. Did you know how to fix that personally, or did you look towards the Edgars of the world and say, like, hey?
I think it was just experience, and Edgar and myself never talked the physical side of hitting. We never talked about stance or this or that. Yeah, we all know how to hit. We all know that we all get to the point different ways. But when the ball's in the hitting zone, the great hitters are all in the same position. And, whether you hit like I did or you hit like Edgar did or you hit like Julio Franco, it doesn't matter. When the ball's in the hitting zone, we're all in the same place. But it was just experience and trial and error, things that have failed in the past. And I learned a defense mechanism where, when I was rolling and I was hot, I could just be straight up and down and be my feet this far apart, and that was giving the most leverage because I'm not the tallest guy in the world. and things just were rolling because everything was on time. But I had the ability to recognize when, all right, I'm not on time right now, so I need to tweak this and tweak that and go into survival mode. And maybe this isn't time to hit home runs. This is time to survive and get some hits until I get my timing back. And I'd be before the game working on it to get my timing back. But I learned as an older player how to survive through those times instead of just suffer.
Interesting point in the book. One of the things I love about it is it's so up to date. I mean, because you just wrote it. You know, there's the bat flip reference in there with Batista. I'd love to ask you about that. I know your phone started to ring after last October, getting comments from you. You've been called the original bat flipper, I guess. And
I don't know if that's true, but yeah, people have been saying that. Dante Bichette had a pretty decent one, but his was more handsy.
We watched yours the other day. I think it was Barry Zito Grand Slam.
Yeah.
And you did one. It was simple, but it was a little bit of a flip.
Very noticeable. Yeah.
But it wasn't like you were doing it, I'm not going to put words in your mouth to show up the picture. But let's talk about Batista. Last October. I mean, that was pretty. As soon as I watched it live, I was like, oh.
Well, the thing about it is that I didn't know, because at that time I was in, I did the minor league season for the A's. And when I was working with the minor league guys, to be honest with you, I wasn't paying attention to the big league side of things. I had I was on Emma, the minor league, website every day, checking on my guys when I wasn't with them. So I was more in tune with them and their development than the big league side, and I wasn't really following. So, they call me about the Batista and I watch it, and it was kind of ridiculous. But you've got to go back. I don't know the history with him and that pitcher. Maybe he had a history where that guy hit him in the head 4 months earlier, maybe a year earlier. So if that's the case, maybe he has every right to do it. If he just did it to do it, I think he went a little too far, just like he did on the slide the other day. It's a BS slide. I'll tell you what, I would have done the same thing to him. I'd have knocked him right in the mouth. And I'll tell you what, anybody that came in high or came in late, I'd aim right here. And I had when I was a young player in the minor leagues, a guy named Marty Martinez. And he's passed away recently. Wonderful man. He was my first infield instructor. And he would sit there and he'd roll trash cans at me at second base and make me turn to and jump over the trash can. And he said, if anybody ever gives a dirty slide to you, Boone, he said, you hit him right between the eyes with the ball. He goes, he's going to mess with your life, you mess with his. And I did. And I aimed right at your face. And I'll tell you what, as soon as I come close, you'll get down next time.
I bet.
And that was a BS slide. I mean, that was a dirty slide. It was late. It was on top of the bag, and he deserved what he got. And I don't really care. Now, in his defense last year for the bat flip, I don't know the history, because I did it one time to Pedro Estacio in Colorado, and this is before I started doing bat flips. And I remember I went to the plate, and I forget what year it was. I think I was with the Reds. And my first at bat, he threw one right in my head, struck me out. Next at bat, I get up, first pitch flips me again. I go down in the dirt. He ends up striking me out again. And now I'm getting mad. Come up with the bases loaded. Buzzes me again. I work it to a 3-1 count, and I hit a home run. And I didn't know what to do. If you ever could get a piece of that footage, it's classic, because it's just the most awkward. Trying to show him up. I'm walking down the first base line like this. I'm just going to walk. And I didn't know what to do. But it was, and I remember Don Baylor yelling at me, who became my hitting coach on two different stints. I remember him yelling at me from the dugout, and me yelling, F you, F you. Did you see what he's been doing to me all game? So you never know the history. So I can't really critique Batista. If that was just him doing it, it was over the top. But like I said, you never know what's behind something. You never know, if somebody does something to me, I'm going after him.
Yeah.
If
and I know we wanted to ask you about this one, Roger Clemens. Yeah. So, and I thought the funniest part of that story, was just that he was going after you because you swung too hard. I was like, do we miss something? So could you briefly maybe just tell that story?
Oh, yeah. That was probably my third or fourth day in the big leagues, and I'm facing Roger Clemens. I'm trying to be this cool, brash kid, but really I'm like, I just want to show that I can play at this level, And I'd caught, I hadn't heard anything, but I go into the Roger game, and my first at bat, I get hit off him. I hit a bullet up the middle, And he's yelling at me at first base and kind of looking at me, and I'm yelling back at him, but I'm scared to death. I'm like,
That's Fenway Park.
I'm just getting here, and I'm yelling at Roger. I end up scoring. He's backing up, and he's still giving me shit. I'm yelling back at him. And my next at bat, first pitch, I'll remember, fastball away, a little bit of a cutter, good pitch, right on a corner strike. Next pitch, he hits me in the head. Didn't hurt. Scared me. I never got hurt by it when I got hit in the head. They were always like glancing blows, but they're scary. And I remember laying in the dirt like, I need to go get him. But I just got here. Should I go get him right now? I'm 4 days in. And I vowed, I said, if I ever take that son of a gun deep, I'm going to let the world know. And I don't know if you saw that home. I finally got him late in my career. And it was the weirdest thing. I hit it, and when I went to flip my bat, it flipped my helmet off. And it was the most awkward thing I've ever seen. I didn't mean to, but my helmet fell off, and I started to run, and I didn't know whether to pick my helmet up. So you see me running around the bases with no helmet, and I felt so stupid. And Roger sent a note over after the game. He said, "Tell Boone to keep his helmet on," but he was completely kidding. He knew that I didn't mean to do it, and at that point, we had played against each other for a lot of years, and been through a lot of battles, and I had kind of, I always remembered it, but we were cool. I mean, we were fine. And he sent that note over, kind of as just a jab, but in a funny, sarcastic way, not in a how dare you, Sure. It was kind of in a respectful way.
You faced a lot of these big-time pitchers. Which one or which a couple of them were you just like, this dude's got my number? You had to change your stance in-game, what the case may be.
Maddox smokes 11.
I told you that was going to be the answer. We talked about this.
Those three were a nightmare, and I don't think I'm the only one they were a nightmare for. I remember before going to Atlanta, I'd sit there and I'd be like, all right, I'd be looking in the paper like, all right, we're going there in 12 days. Who are we getting? Hopefully we get the 4th and 5th.
That's great.
And never. It always lined up. Maddox, Smoltz, Glavin. And a lot of guys had my number, let's be honest. But those guys were a battle. Randy was a pain in the neck. I remember sitting in Atlanta when I was in Atlanta. That was one of the reasons I was excited when I got traded to Atlanta. Not only was I going to be on a great team, but I didn't have to face them. And Greg was my locker mate. And we'd be going, Atlanta did it a certain way where we'd go over the team we were playing the day before the series. We'd go over all the hitters and all the pitchers in the same meeting. That was pretty rare. It's the only team that's ever done it together. And I know Greg would sit there, and Greg was he had all the background on everybody. And I know he'd always reach over to me, and he'd have stats of me against him, and he'd hand me the piece of paper and go, aren't you glad you're on my team?
That's awesome.
And I got him late in my career. I started getting hits off him, and he goes, oh, yeah, you waited till I was 39 and old. You couldn't hit me when I was in my prime.
That's great. We got time for 2 more questions. Cool with that, Benito?
Yeah.
Thanks again for coming in, man. We appreciate your time, and good luck with your book. And people go right to our site. They can go to the 162 Experience on Facebook and get a copy. But you get it at bookstores now. You get the audio. And Pete Rhodes, you talk a lot about Pete in there growing up. What some cool stories of sleeping over his house. He had a nickname for you. Was making fun of you a lot. And then the gambling thing comes. And I'll just let you give your 2 cents on Pete not being in the hall.
Well, we touched on it earlier. Growing up, I was so fortunate as a kid to grow up around such great players and appreciate it now. But I never had favorite player. I mean, I just loved hanging around all of them. And then when Dad went to the Angels, and it was, I'd hang around and watch Bobby Grich and Rod Carew and Reggie Jackson and Fred Lynn and all those guys. But if I had to, it's like a favorite team. I don't have a favorite team. I don't have a favorite football team. I don't have a favorite basketball team. I'm a fan of sport.
Sure.
But if I had to say the ultimate baseball player, I would pick Pete Rhodes. He just was the ultimate. I mean, remember my dad tells a story, and he says, because he was a teammate of Pete's for 2 or 3 years, and he said, Pete was going through a nasty divorce, and he was killing it on the field. He was getting 200 hits again. my dad went up to him and said, Pete, how do you do it when you're going through all this nasty divorce stuff? And he said, Bobby, it's a hell of a lot easier dealing with it when you go 3 for 4 than 0 for 4. And that's the kind of guy Pete was. I mean, he was just. I'm kind of up in the air on how I feel about it. I mean, it's the hit king. I mean, It's the hit king. But it is pretty darn clear on you do not gamble on your sport, whether it's your team or not your team. You know, if it's your team and you gamble, you're still putting guys at risk, because all of a sudden a guy that probably you're not going to use today from a health standpoint and from a future, say, you know, let's say a reliever's gone 2 days in a row and you got Rob Dibble out there who's your big time closer, and you'd put him at risk by pitching him 3 days in a row. If you got a lot of money on the line and the game's on the line, you might bring him in when you normally would.
Yeah, especially if you're down a lot of money too.
Yeah, and right, and everybody, he didn't bet against himself. Well, no, we're not saying he threw games.
Yeah, right.
He's always trying to win. I know Pete; he's one of the most competitive guys ever, and I love him. He's one of my favorite players ever. Hall of Fame, I got a big problem with the Hall of Fame to begin with. I mean, I think it's a joke. I think there's so many people that should be in. We got people playing God saying who did this and who did that and who didn't do this. How do they know? How does anybody know? Nobody knows, especially the sport writers. They can make their assumptions, but who are they to say, well, I think he did because he looks a little more buff than that guy. What does that have to do with anything? Right. So I think I have a big problem with the Hall of Fame to begin with. But all Pete's stuff's in the Hall of Fame. Everybody's there to see it. So I think he should be allowed to be in.
Sure.
And I've wrestled with this for a long time. But unfortunately, I don't think he's going to see it in his lifetime. It's probably going to be one of those things when he passes in years and years from now.
Yeah, I hope it's before then.
Yeah.
You guys still keep in touch?
I talk to Pete probably once a year. Yeah. I talk to his son, time to time. Sure. Son's funny. His son's funny. We've known each other forever. But Big Pete. I saw him a couple years ago in Vegas. He was signing autographs. I walked in and he said the same thing. Hey, Mullion, what are you doing here?
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Hey, when you were coming up through your career, I want to kind of give a little value to our audience, what to listen to. When you were, say, the minors to the bigs or whatever timeline that could have been, what was the biggest point where you were like, okay, I got this, like exponentially your knowledge of the game or your athleticism of the game, where it just jumped you to heights where you could be that all-star?
Well, that was after 97. After 97, when I changed everything with Dad, and we went into the 98 season, I felt like I got to a different level. 94, I hit 320. But then they figured me out, and I didn't make the adjustment. 95, I had a decent year. And then 96 and 97 were tough years. 98, I had a good year. 99 was okay. So I felt a jump from 97 to 98 that I went to a different level, an all-star caliber level. And then once I got back to Seattle, I jumped to a completely different level. And that was through Edgar and the way I just changed how I live my life and how I, as far as the gym and the eating program and Edgar's tutelage basically jumped me to that next level. Because in 2000 I was having a great power year, but I missed the last 6 weeks of the season with the knee. So that's a whole difference.
I think we counted 7 years. You hit 19 home runs one year, but if it wasn't for that year, you would have went 7 straight with 20 or more home runs, and that's very rare air.
Yeah.
331, 141 ribbies, and 37 home runs in 2001. And your teammate Ichiro wins the MVP. Was that tough?
He owes me that trophy.
Yeah, we believe so.
He owes me that trophy. I just learned, you don't get, life isn't fair.
No.
And some people are given things, they're just born that way, with the golden spoon, and some aren't. Some got to do double to get the same. Yeah. But I've found through the years, it's nothing I have any control over. There's 2 or 3 years I should have won the Gold Glove and I didn't. And there's a year I shouldn't have won it and I did. So those are things that, there's years I should have made the All-Star team and I didn't make it. And somebody else that was less deserving made it. There's nothing I can do about it. But it's like, I'm not the only one. A lot of us have gotten snubbed if you want to call it that. So it's not like, oh, woe is me. It's like, no, that's life. And you move on, and it's something that's out of your control. It's nothing based strictly on a number. It's a very vague, if they want you, if they vote for you, they'll vote for you. I mean, look at Rafael Palmeiro when he won that Gold Glove when he played 16 games at first base. That's just people going, oh, who won it last year? And that's when they kind of got egg on their face and they started taking it a little more serious.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Final question, and I know your son, Jake, it's interesting because I know you don't want to put any pressure on him to be a big leaguer. You said you'd support him no matter what he did, and that's a great way a father can raise a son. At the same time, you open up the book with a story about him, and you close the book with a story about him, and it's great stories in between. How cool would that be to have a fourth generation? I mean, I don't think anyone else is in the running.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be awesome. And I got twin boys that are about to turn 12, so...
You got three shots. Yeah.
I think it would, obviously it would be unbelievable, but he's such a good kid and a great student. And he's going to be successful, whatever he does. He loves the game. He's got a passion for it. He's a really good player. But time will tell. And how awesome would that be? But this, his dad is not going to put that pressure on him. Whatever he decides to do, or if in 3 years he said, Dad, I don't want to play baseball, I'm going to completely support him, whatever he does. And that's the way my dad was.
And he's got a playoff game today. What position does he play?
He's a shortstop.
Oh, cool.
Torrey Pines, yeah.
Great. Hey, final question. Bret Boone, live in the studio. We appreciate coming into our kitchen today for our kitchen interview. We ask this to everybody that comes in. We've had a lot of different authors and people that have had success in business. You're talking to yourself at age 18. What advice would you give yourself looking back now with a lot of success you've had in just in life in general? What advice would you give yourself knowing what you know now at age 18?
Age 18. Well, first of all, I'd have started training at age 18 physically, but I would tell myself, enjoy every moment you have in the game because it is so special that I think that's the advice I'd give to current players. Is it take time? It's so hectic and there's so much pressure and it's every day and it's hard. And we turn into robots and we just, all right, I've got to face him tomorrow and my swing isn't quite right. Stop and enjoy the game and look around and just appreciate how fortunate you are to have a big league uniform and enjoy every day, because when it's done, you think it's never going to end. And when it's done, you look back and go, wow, those were some neat times. But I never really stopped and smelled the roses without getting cliche-ish. But I didn't. It was just something I did, and I was focused. It wasn't an arrogant thing. It was just, no, I got to worry about playing baseball. Right? A lot of us, I think, don't stop and enjoy it and just kind of take time once in a while and look around and just go, wow, this is awesome, and how lucky am I to do this for a living? So I would do that, and I would have started training at an earlier age, and I would have had that talk with Edgar 10 years earlier.
That's great. That's great. Benito, any final words?
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you. We really appreciate you coming on the interview. It was a great time. I could talk baseball for hours. I love this game. But anyway, we want to say, can people reach you for your book? Do you have a website or?
Yeah, I'm new at this promoting stuff, but it's BretBooneBook.com. And then I think my new Twitter handle is @TheBoone29. And then Instagram is, I think it's Boone Bret.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's Boone Bret is the Instagram. And then I just bought into that Suit Club.
Yeah,
so I'm a part owner. It's a suitclubvip.com. And it's just, we're just doing custom suits for athletes. And they're just high-end suits that are...
I saw a picture of you on Facebook, and it looked pretty sharp.
I'll tell you what, I wasn't a suit guy. All of a sudden, I'm wearing suits through the airport and thinking I'm looking good. So usually I dress like this.
And you said you could like roll it up in a ball and just hang it up.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's just really high quality, and so you can go to their website, check it out, and I think it's gonna be a cool thing.
Cool, guys. And we will put all these links from the video and the audio. Put your book so they can buy it right away, immediately, have it shipped to their house.
Absolutely.
Simple.
Cool. Good stuff.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks again, buddy.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We got a wrap.
Appreciate it.